Sodor's Legend of the Lost Treasure. Spoiler alert, this contains spoilers from the movie, so if you continue to watch, you will be spoiled. If you don't want to continue watching, exit this video immediately. It was a sunny day on the island of Sodor. A perfect day, Thomas thought, for racing Birdie. "Express coming through," he peeped as he sped past Birdie. The passengers inside his coaches, Annie and Clarabelle, bounced about like peas in a frying pan. Reference. "You know that Sir Topham Hatt doesn't approve of you racing," Annie said. "Nonsense! I'll always be Sir Topham Hatt's #1 engine," Thomas puffed. "My branch line is the most important part of the whole railway." "Is it now, Thomas?" On the other side of Sodor, a new branch line was being built between Augsburg Harbor and Harwich. Marion, the railway steam shovel, traveled through Augsburg Junction on her way to the new branch line. Suddenly, Marion saw something she couldn't believe. Tiny little engines. A brake van named Toad laughed. Haven't you seen miniature engines before?" He introduced Marion to Mike, Rex, and Bert. They were very small engines who helped take heavy goods to the big engines. Marion was sure they were magical. "I bet they make wishes come true," she thought. Marion, that would be a gnome or a leprechaun's job, and these engines are not leprechauns or gnomes. The next morning, Gordon was waiting for Thomas to bring him his coaches, but Thomas was still being very cheeky and sped off with the coaches himself. He raced past Gordon, pulling the coaches faster and faster, until he reached a red signal. "Cinders and ashes!" Thomas gasped as he came to a sudden stop. But the coaches didn't stop. They flew off the tracks. Uh-oh, Thomas is in trouble now. Sir Topham Hatt was not happy when he heard what Thomas had done. He ordered Thomas to work on a new branch line. "But sir, what about my branch line?" Thomas peeped. Just then a new engine named Ryan rolled in. "I was invited to look after that branch line." "Ah," Sir Topham Hatt said, "my new tank engine is here." Thomas couldn't believe it. "A new tank engine?" Uh-oh. So it's going to be like the Great Discovery all over again. Thomas went to work on the new branch line, but he didn't pay attention to the danger signs. Suddenly the earth crumbled away beneath him, and the tracks buckled and broke. Thomas crashed down into the giant underground cavern. "Fizzling fireboxes! Where am I?" he peeped. That's the same line he said in Misty Island Rescue. As Thomas looked around the cavern, he saw something amazing. There in front of him was an old pirate ship. Well, I'll be. After Emily towed Thomas away for repairs, Rocky pulled the pirate ship up out of the cavern. How did anyone get that in there?" asked Alfie. "Jack thought someone had built it in there, like a ship in a bottle." "Nonsense," puffed Donald. "There must have been a way to sail in." "Aye," Douglas agreed. "Maybe the cave entrance collapsed. If there's a buried pirate ship, then excuse me, this is confusing. If there's a buried pirate ship, there must be buried treasure too." Marion peeped. She made a wish to the little magical engines that she would dig up the treasure. That silly Marion. Not far away in Augsburg Bay, that rhymes, a mysterious sailor stood in his sailboat, holding his telescope. "Stop bobbing about," he commanded to his tiny boat. "Sorry," the boat replied through a mouthful of water. Poor thing. The sailor raised his telescope to watch the excitement at the new branch line and started to make a plan. Uh-oh. That night, Thomas went to the sheds to rest, but Ryan, the new tank engine, was already there. He invited Thomas in, but Thomas steamed past. "I'd rather sleep on a siding, by myself," he puffed grumpily. Thomas is feeling like he's being replaced, poor thing. Thomas rolled into the darkness. As he settled down, he heard rustling. He looked up and saw a ghost ship glowing in the dark. Thomas followed the eerie sailboat. A ghostly figure stood upon its deck. It glided past the danger signs, right up to the edge of the hole that led into the cavern. That's when Thomas realized it wasn't a ghost boat. "He's got wheels!" Yes, he does have wheels. "Why are you sneaking about after me?" the man asked. Thomas introduced himself. "I discovered this cavern and the pirate ship, but Rocky has gotten all the credit." "Well, that makes us friends," the man replied. "My name is Sailor John." "And I'm Skiff," the boat said. "We're looking for the treasure." Sailor John tied a rope around his waist, and Thomas lowered him into the cavern. Sailor John gave me wheels after you found the ship," Skiff explained. "This way we can search on land." "I found it!" Sailor John exclaimed from the hole. "The treasure?" Thomas and Skiff asked. "No," the sailor called back. "The map." Oh boy. The sun was rising as Thomas returned to the new branch line. Ryan called to him. "Thomas, did I see you with a sailboat?" "No," Thomas peeped, "you did not. I guess it was a dream," Ryan said. Ryan went to an old hopper to fill up with coal. Thomas knew it was bad coal, but he didn't say anything. Uh-oh. That afternoon, Ryan went to fetch some dynamite for Marion. When he returned, his funnel was spitting sparks because of the bad coal. The sparks set the trucks with dynamite on fire! Oh no! Thomas rushed to help. He buffered up to the flaming trucks and pushed them out of the yard. In the confusion, the signalman switched the track, sending Thomas toward the cavern. Oh, not again! Thomas's brakes squealed as the trucks rolled into the giant hole. The dynamite exploded with a mighty kaboom! Oh boy. Sir Topham Hatt was very upset. He ordered Thomas to stay in a siding for the rest of the day. Oh no. Now he's really in trouble, poor thing. The other engines returned to the work. It was quiet and uneventful afternoon until Marion Shovel uncovered a treasure chest. Her wish had come true. Oh dear. But there was one person who wasn't pleased by this discovery. Sailor John. "I haven't searched all this time to see that treasure put in a museum," he growled at Thomas later that day. Skiff was confused. "But you always said we would give it to a museum." "That's called lying, Skiff." Thomas pushed Skiff and Sailor John aside and rushed away. Poor Thomas. I know how he feels. Everyone else getting all the credit and he's not getting anything. That's really saddening. Thomas returned to the new branch line as the sun was setting. Ryan rolled up next to him. "Thank you for helping me with the dynamite," Ryan peeped. "I'm sorry you got into trouble." "I should be the one saying sorry," Thomas replied. "I should have warned you about the bad coal." Ryan smiled. and invited Thomas into the shed. "That's all right," Thomas peeped. "I think I'll spend the night in Natford just in case." "In case of what? In case of what?" Ryan asked, but Thomas was already gone. Ryan's persona sounds a lot different than what it says on the Wikia. It says he's confident and dismissive, but here he sounds a lot nicer than he lets on. Oh well, I guess we'll find out in the movie. At Natford Station, Thomas hid behind some sheds near Sir Topham Hatt's office, where the treasure had been locked away in a safe. He waited and eventually fell asleep. That's sometime like the guards at Celestia's castle. While Thomas slept, Skiff and Sailor John rolled up to the platform. I don't want any part of this," Skiff protested, but Sailor John didn't listen. He snuck into the office and stole the treasure. "Help! Help! Help!" Skiff cried. "Help!" Thomas woke and started to chase them. "You'll have to call me Pirate John from now on," the sailor yelled from his boat with an evil laugh. So that must be it then. He's going to be the villain of this movie. I hope he gets what he deserves. Thomas raced as fast as he could. His whistle blew a warning to all the nearby trains. "Express coming through!" Rex, Mike, and Bert rushed to help. They bumped ballast onto the tracks. The escaping boat crashed right through. Ryan tried to slow them down too, but it didn't work. "Thomas!" Skiff shouted. "Run me off the rails! I won't mind!" Thomas sped up and bumped Skiff. The tiny boat flew off the rails and splashed into the harbor. Screech! Thomas tried to brake, but he couldn't stop. He leaped off the rails and came to rest in the surf. Oh boy. Skiff rocked back and forth, taking on water. "The treasure is too heavy," he cried. "Throw it overboard, or we'll be sunk." "No!" shouted Sailor John. "Sail on, I tell you." Skiff managed to hit Sailor John with his boom and knock him into the water. In the commotion, the treasure toppled over too. It sank beneath the waves. The police soon arrived and took Sailor John away. Well, at least we now know what happens to the bad guy in this movie. And good thing, too. We'll never see any more of him again. Divers rescued the treasure and delivered it to the Arsburg Museum just in time for the completion of the new branch line. "My engines are more important to me than any treasure," Sir Topham Hatt said, "and you, Thomas, are my number one." He's also Twilight's number one. So I've heard and seen. He let Thomas roll through and break the ribbon, opening the line. Thomas was very happy to be such an important and really useful engine. He blew his whistle and all the engines cheered. The end. Well, I gotta say, this was a good book and it's gonna be a good movie. And I really, really hope that it'll be more exciting than the book lets on. And I know that some of the book might not be as honest as it might be in the movie. You know, the books are always different than the movies. But then again, we'll never know until it's released. So, this is Sunset Shimmer saying, I'm starting to like this movie. Even though it's not out yet, I'm really looking forward to seeing it. I gotta say, I already like it. I especially like Skiff and his redemption at the end when he's helped Thomas stop Sailor John. Well, this is Sunset Shimmer saying goodbye, good night, and keep an eye out for the new Thomas and Friends movie, Sodor's Legend of the Lost Treasure. You'll be pretty impressed. Well, happy anniversary, Thomas and Friends.